Hey there everybody, Scotia here, and the Game Awards ended a few hours ago, and overall it was a decent show, but the main thing I'm going to be focusing on for this video are the two fighting game reveals for Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8. There was other stuff that I was interested in that I thought looked good, but I'm just going to stick with those two because I feel like I have the most to talk about with them. So I'm going to start with Tekken 8 and then go into Street Fighter 6 because I feel like I have more to say about the last one, but we might as well just go straight into it. So pretty much not long after I put up that video last week about my kind of like hopes and speculations about what was going to be showing up at the Game Awards, Tekken 8 got like confirmed for the show pretty soon afterwards. So we knew going into it that Tekken 8 was going to be showing up, and I've seen online that a lot of people seem to be a bit disappointed that like the presence of Tekken 8 being at the show was hyped up a bit too much. I personally don't think so. I don't think that was the case for me. I had like pretty neutral expectations going into this. I was expecting like a couple of character reveals, maybe a bit more on the story, maybe a bit more between Jin and Kazuya. So in that sense, I was pretty satisfied by this. Overall though, we got quite a few character reveals. We got reveals for Paul Phoenix, Martial Law, Jack 8, King, Lars and Jun. And I know a lot of people are very excited about that last one. Jun is a character that has been highly requested for quite a long time, and has always been a character that has felt inevitable, I guess, in the sense that as the story has kind of gone from like Kazuya versus Heihachi to now Kazuya versus Jin, I always felt like Jun coming back for when the series ever got to the point where Kazuya and Jin like solely fought each other. Like I thought that was always obvious, like even more so after Tekken 7 kind of focused on Kazuya's mother like coming back and having a role. So yeah, I'm not surprised by the reveal. I am surprised it's happened like this soon. Like I thought it would be a big focus eventually, but I didn't think it would be kind of like the second showing of the game kind of focusing on like, hey, Jun's coming back. I don't really know the word to describe it, but the feeling I get from a lot of Jun's scenes in this trailer is very kind of like afterlifey, if that makes sense. It very much seems like she's talking to Jin or interacting with Jin from a different plane of existence from like the rest of the cast and all that. So I'm interested in seeing what's going on there, if she actually did die or if she's been reborn or if she was always kind of in this different place. But it'd be interesting to find out. But I am glad to see Jun back. The other reveals, like obviously none really shocking. I think Paul, you know, he's never missed a game. He was obviously coming back. King as well, he's always been in every game in some form. Jack as well, I think he's been in every game. He might have missed one or two. But yeah, so like none of these reveals outside of Jun's were like, oh well, really cool, but they all look really cool. Actually no, I forgot, I'm very surprised they revealed Lars so early. I was kind of 50-50 on Lars making it. I felt like he was likely, given that, you know, he was kind of built up to have such an important role, especially being on Jin's side in the conflict between him and Kazuya. But I always thought it was kind of like, you know, I could have seen him as DLC and just been like a story cameo. But no, like straight up, he's here. Looks a lot better than he did in Tekken 7. I think it's hard to say if most people did, but I think overall, I think everyone looks better than they did in Tekken 7. The designs are, I don't hate them, but they have an element to them that I feel like is a bit more over designed than what I'm used to. Like, because the big thing with the Tekken 7 designs is that like they were just so random for most of the characters. They were just completely just no real kind of like rhyme or reason to them for the most part. Like Hwoarang, I still do not know or understand what the logic behind his design in Tekken 7 was. So, you know, fingers crossed he looks a lot better when he comes back for Tekken 8, because he will be. I mean, Jin's involved, so like Hwoarang will 100% be there. But yeah, like even Paul, like Paul's fit him, I think, a bit more with the leather and all that. But yeah, like a lot of people, I think, are disappointed with his design. I think because the hair. You know, he doesn't have his iconic really tall Polnareff hair. It's whatever. I like it a lot, and it's always been one of those like instantly like recognizable things about Paul, but it's kind of like it doesn't ruin the character for me. Like, I'm still a fan of Paul, I still like Paul, I still think his design is good, and it's not like we've never seen Paul with his hair down. He had his hair down in Tekken 4. But yeah, I think the game's shaping up great. I know a lot of people as well are also very disappointed because the game, I think very clearly, does not look as good as it did when it got revealed a couple of months ago at that PlayStation Experience Showcase thing, whatever they're called, State of Plays, that's it. And I think that's understandable. I understand why people would be upset by that. For me personally, I always kind of knew that the game was going to look like it wasn't going to look that good. I think the game looked good, like 100% way better than Tekken 7, but I mean, Tekken 7 was a very old game running off a lot of old kind of like animations and skeletons and graphics. It was just, yeah, like Tekken 7, even when it was new, it looked old. This looks way better though, so that's kind of my only real kind of demand, I guess, is that like just look better than Tekken 7, but I knew it was going to anyway. But yeah, like I said, game looks good. I'm very much excited to see more of it, interested to see who else they bring back. I think at this point, the only characters that I really want, because I've said before, obviously Jin's my favorite Tekken character, so it's rare for me to like get the character I want like straight away. At this point, the only characters I think of that I could really want would be Mokujin. I really love Mokujin. It was a shame he wasn't in Tekken 7. I feel like there's a decent chance he might be in this one though, because the thing with Mokujin is that he's always one of those characters that I think his kind of like role in the story is that he only shows up when it's like a world-ending threat, when there's like a massive threat to humanity. And I was reading a couple of interviews earlier with Harada talking about Tekken 8, and he mentioned like humanity and like Kazuya's making everybody go to war, and I think that could be enough reason for him to come back. I really hope so. I really like Mokujin. Other than him, I would probably say Armor King. Very, very big fan of Armor King. I think he'll probably be DLC though. He's always like a pretty decent DLC choice at some point. I just hope we don't have to wait like as long as we did for him for Tekken 7. Other than that though, honestly, I'm fine with whoever. Like, I obviously I have my Tekken characters that I like and the characters I'm not that keen on, but like overall, like I'm honestly fine with anybody showing up. It's like I've got Jin, so at the end of the day, I can't really complain. But yeah, so like I said, very much excited to see more of it. I understand why there's some disappointment from people in terms of certain aspects, but personally for me, nothing I really saw bothered me, which is a good sign, obviously. But yeah, so that's all I can really say about it, to be honest. Very much excited to see more. So now we get to Street Fighter 6, and unfortunately a lot of what got revealed and announced here got leaked a few hours before, which is unfortunate, but this is, a pretty common thing with Capcom at this point, to be honest. But for Street Fighter 6, we got the reveals of DJ, Manon, Marissa, and JP. And what immediately stands out to me about this is I'm very surprised that JP got revealed so soon. I really thought they'd save him for one of the last reveals, or like the last reveal itself. From what we've gathered from like info and kind of like leaked data mine stuff, is that he is pretty much going to be the villain for the game, or at least the initial villain of the game, maybe in a way that Nakali is, where like, the actual villain shows up as DLC later on. So I felt like in that sense he was probably one of the more interesting characters left to reveal from a narrative point. So I thought, Capcom would hold off on him, but no, I mean, I can't complain. He looks great. He's clearly villainous. He's probably, in terms of narrative, after Ken, probably the most interesting character. So, yeah, I think it was a good choice to reveal him here. Obviously, JP is going to be a very important character, I feel like, especially in terms of how he's going to be linked to several of the characters in terms of like what's going on in the overall plot of Street Fighter 6. Outside of him, though, we obviously got DJ, and to me, DJ is DJ. I was never really a fan of him, especially for a long time. I did not like him. I thought he was a pretty lame character. I've come around on him. I think DJ's, cool. I think he's got some good aspects to him. I'm glad to see him back, obviously. The only thing, I think I've said this before, but the only thing that kind of like boggles my mind about DJ is that like he's literally the only returning character in this game that wasn't in Street Fighter 5, which is insane. Like a DJ of all characters, but he's turned out alright. I'm not that much of a fan of his redesign, to be honest. I absolutely think he's one of the few redesigns that we saw from the leaked stuff that looked worse than his original design. But he'll get a classic costume, so that's not that big of a deal. He looks fun though. His gameplay looks interesting. I'll definitely try him out, maybe at least once or twice. Like I said, never really big DJ fans, which means I'm never really a big DJ player, so can't really comment on the gameplay or anything like that. So yeah, he was kind of like oh yeah, cool DJ, I guess. Like, nothing to really say, but he looks alright. And then we have Manon. And she was a character I was very much excited for. She was one of the few characters that I was kind of like really hoping I would click with in terms of like, day one, because which I'll get into in a minute. There's currently like no one like at all for a while that I was excited for or am interested in coming to Street Fighter 6 anytime soon. So, I was really like, it was Manon and Lily were the two that I was really like, I really hope I like the look of them. And I don't think Manon looks bad, don't get me wrong. But yeah, nothing about her really kind of like jumped out at me from that trailer. She looks cool, but like, I don't really see myself playing it. And it's more than just gameplay, like just the other aspects of her design, the way she looks and kind of the way she moves and that kind of the more gymnastic aspect to it. It all looks great, and I'm not, saying that it's bad and it looks awful. It's just not my thing. So that's a shame. I was a bit bummed by that, but what made up for it was the last character that I revealed, which was Marissa. And She was a character I was kind of like when I first saw her in the leaks, and she had a cameo in the first reveal trailer from I think E3. I was very like not against the design, but I was very kind of like cautious or concerned in terms of like how it was going to work, because she's clearly very Greco-Roman inspired, like very kind of like gladiator theme, and her hair was probably the most standout example of that, because it's clearly in the shape of like a helmet, and I think in the artwork it did not look that good. I think the concept art of Marissa, both from the leak and the official, I think it just didn't make it look that great. Like, it just looked weird, and I was kind of like, I don't know if that's gonna work. Like, everything else about it looked great. Like, I love the idea of like a 6 foot, I don't know, 9, just like muscle lady. I just think that's cool. But yeah, I was kind of cautious on that aspect. But honestly, I think she looks great. I think in game she like the hair actually like works well, which is weird. I was not expecting that. But like, I think just gameplay wise, she just looks really fun. Like, she just looks like just really strong, and just like the move she does where she kind of like, I think, puts the person in like, I think it was an armbar, and then just whacks them in the back of the head. Like, that was great. I thought that was a really cool move. But yeah, like, and her stage was great. But yeah, I was not expecting to like be such a fan of her. Like, I really did not think that like out of all those characters that could have got revealed, I really didn't think Marissa would be the one that would like catch my eye the most. So that's good, you know. I'm glad someone at least who's caught my eye in that way. Again, nothing really else to really go off. Like, they've updated the website, but the profiles for all those characters, like, I think there was a bit for JP where it's like he owns a conglomerate, I think it said, and he's like responsible for Nashal being so kind of like profitable or whatever. Nashal is the thing that's showed up a couple times in some win quotes. I think it's something happened there involving Ken, and I think that's kind of like the backstory, like the kind of the backbone of his backstory in terms of like what's led Ken to this point. So I don't know actually if Nashal is JP's stage, like, because his stage looks like it's in the mountains somewhere. I did notice actually, his stage to me has a strong Gil kind of theme to it, like with the whole kind of like duality of the red and blue. Like, it has like red and blue like banners, and some of the mosaics on the floor have like a red and blue color pattern. Don't know if that's just me, but I think in Street Fighter, when you see red and blue opposite each other, I think to me that, you know, I think that's kind of a sign that it's something with Gil. So, you know, who knows if that goes anywhere, who knows if it's just me reaching, or if Capcom had no idea, had no intention of, you know, alluding to it in that way. But that was something I did notice. The only other real thing of note from the trailer that I, you know, off the top of my head that I can think of that stood out was from JP, where he said something along the lines of he was obsessed with finding an appropriate vessel for his powers. And this is obviously talking about Bison, and it's very clear that JP has ties to Bison, because it very much looks like he has psycho power. And I know most people are probably going to jump to like, oh, he's another like body for Bison, like Ed and Cammy and all those characters were. But personally, I'm kind of leaning towards that JP is like also like a normal practitioner of psycho power, just like Bison is. Because the thing about psycho power that kind of got forgotten about is that like Bison was taught psycho power, like psycho power and the whole fighting style and that usage of that power, like that's something that can be taught to somebody from a teacher. So my kind of wild card bet is that JP isn't a replacement body for anyone. He is also a practitioner of psycho power and was taught maybe by Bison, maybe by Bison's master, the person who taught Bison psycho power. But that's kind of my bet, is that JP like is, you know, he is also a user of it and is not a clone or a body or anything like that. So that's pretty much all I have to really say about the trailer itself. Like, it was a decent trailer and I enjoyed it, but yeah, it didn't really like super blow me away or anything. Alongside the character reveals that got leaked, what also got leaked was info about the release date for Street Fighter 6, which is June 2nd, 2023, and info on the season pass for the first year of the game's post-release content. So obviously the release date is a disappointment for many people. I totally get it. Personally, I'm not that upset. I think because I'm still like just burnt completely from Street Fighter V's launch. So personally, I'm fine with them taking as long as they need to get the game right. But yeah, I totally get it's a disappointment, and you know, it's another 6 months of waiting and still having to play Street Fighter 5, which I know nobody really wants to do at this point. But you know, it is what it is. I can't really complain about it that much. What I can complain about though is the state of the post-release content that is going to be happening for Street Fighter 6. So as per the details from the Ultimate Edition of Street Fighter 6, which has the most content and has the biggest season pass, is that we can look forward to 4 more additional characters, costumes for them, colours for them, and 2 additional stages. And personally, 4 characters is a massive slap in the face for a multitude of reasons. And it's like, I understand why they may do this, because obviously the game is pretty much releasing in the middle of next year, and I understand that they may not want to have the first season of DLC kind of stretch into the year after that. I understand that, but at the same time, given the fact we already know who those 4 characters are pretty much going to be, because they're the only 4 characters that are left from the leak that we haven't seen confirmed yet, which is Akuma, Ed, Rashid, and Aki. I have nothing against those characters individually. Akuma probably my least favourite out of all of those, but I don't hate Akuma. I just think he's a bit overrated and a bit dull. I really like Ed. I'm very excited to see Ed. Aki, I think, looks fantastic, like one of the better newcomer designs from that leak. Rashid, I like Rashid, though I don't love him, but I'm happy he's going to be in the game. But when you combine those characters together, I think that's not only a baffling season pass, especially for the first year, but I think it's also kind of insulting in a way. And I get, insulting might be a strong word, and, old Scotia overreacting again. But when you really look at it and you sit down and you kind of think about it, like, chances are we're not going to be getting any Street Fighter 3 or Alpha characters in Street Fighter 6 until maybe 2024. And even then, it's just going to be a toss-up in terms of, who's going to make it, because now we have even less slots if the 4 character season passes continue. It very well may not. We might, season 2 might go back to 6, and I sincerely hope it does. But at the moment, there's just very little to be optimistic about, to be honest. Especially, for me, a Street Fighter 3 fan. Yeah, it's just kind of I really just kind of wonder what the point of getting excited about it all is, because it's honestly, outside of Ed and Aki, and even then it's I'm not majorly yeah, come on, for either of them. But it's after being told by so many people oh, don't worry, you'll get them as DLC, all the Street Fighter 2 characters being, all the World Warriors being in there, that's fine. It's because they're gonna have tons of Street Fighter 3 characters as DLC. You'll get who you want eventually, and to have to be told all that, and then for me to have believed it, because that's what I had to tell myself to pretty much get over that fact that the base roster just had no one that from 3. I had to pretty much convince myself that the DLC was going to be full of them, to then basically be told oh no, the first season, basically the first year, the whole 2023, you're not getting any in the base roster, you're not getting any in DLC. Maybe in 2024 you'll have the chance to possibly have the characters you want up for a chance. And it's it's that thing where it's Sagat is obviously coming. We're going to be getting more Street Fighter 2 characters. We have a ton of Alpha characters, and it's those characters far more popular, far more in demand than Street Fighter 3 characters, especially the Street Fighter 3 characters that I want. And it's just how much can I put up with, in a way? And that's the thing, I was really torn last night when all this leaked before the Game Awards, where I was just kind of wondering, man, why am I even really excited for this game? Because it looks great and it has all this content that I'm super excited for. And it's that thing where it's I'm really torn between supporting Street Fighter 6 because it looks like a fantastic product that has very visible signs that Capcom have learnt from their mistakes that they made in Street Fighter 5. But at the same time, Capcom keep neglecting this side of the fan base that, keep getting neglected. And, I really hate to sound like a woe is me when it comes to this stuff. I really do, but it's when it happens so often. When it's the game that is finally set past Street Fighter 3 in the timeline, and there's just no sign of any of them, not only in the base roster, but for the first year of DLC. It just kind of gets me to the point where it's what's the point? Why should I reward Capcom for this? It's so that's why I'm torn. It's I want to reward them because the game itself looks amazing and they've learned so many lessons from Street Fighter 5, but at the same time I don't want to reward them because the fan that I am and the fan base that I am a part of in the series, the people that really like Street Fighter 3 and like those characters and have come to love them just as much as any other character in the series, keep getting ignored and pushed aside in favour of other characters and other things. And it's I really don't care, preference or other. It is baffling to me, utterly baffling, that 2 Street Fighter 5 characters are going to be in the game before any Street Fighter 3. I understand it because Street Fighter 5 was the kind of the bridge between, you know, 3 and the rest of the series, but it makes no sense to me. There is no way like that makes sense. I don't know. It just boggles my mind that like Ed and Rashid are going to be in the game before any Street Fighter 3 character, and it's like, I can understand Ed because he's, you know, he is an important character that was built up in 5, and I think I might have said before, but I feel like he's going to be very important in terms of the return of Bison, because Bison's coming back because he's Bison. So I understand that. I understand why they may want to push him forward, despite most people probably not being that, you know, bothered about Ed. But like, I don't know, like just the fact that it's like 2 characters. I don't know. Basically, it's like, I'm just bummed that there's 4 characters. I'm bummed that like every time I get my hopes up about like, oh, you know, like it's bad now for Street Fighter 3 characters, but you know, at this point it'll get better. And then to get close to that point and then being like, oh no, like that point's still going to be bad, but you now have to wait like an additional extra like year on top to like be excited at more of them coming. I don't know. I've rambled in circles about this topic so often at this point, and I think the only thing that really can be said is just other people who are, you know, Street Fighter 3 fans just going like, yeah, it sucks. And that's all you can really do at the moment. But yeah, I'm really torn, like, between just wanting to support Capcom for the great strides they've made, but also not wanting to reward them because, personally for me, my needs and desires and wants as a fan of Street Fighter just consistently have not been met. And it's by this point, I feel like it's something that shouldn't be rewarded. But you know, I mean, I'll end up getting the game anyway. I'll probably get the most expensive edition, not the collector's edition, because that looks kind of like a waste of money. But like, you know, like I'm still a fan of the series. I'm still a fan of 6. I'm interested in 6. It just bums me out, and it's the fact it's like I've felt the same, and I've seen other people talk about it on Twitter and stuff, where it's like it really just feels like they wanted all the style and all the substance from 3 and everything that made people really like those games, especially Third Strike, but none of the characters. It's like, oh no, we'll take this location from Third Strike, like we'll take Sean's parry stage, but we won't have Sean. Like, no, like we don't need Sean. Like, we'll take his parry stage though. We'll take the parry minigame that was his for 2 games. Like, we'll take that gladly, but no, we won't bother taking Sean. And it's like that thing where it just feels hollow to me. Like, other people are like, oh, they're embracing so much of Third Strike and Street Fighter 3, and it's like, yeah, but they're not doing it in the way that matters most, which is including the fucking characters that like were the lifeblood of those entries. Yeah, that's pretty much it though. I kind of wanted to just get another whining session out there, I guess. Yeah, that's all I can really say, to be honest. Like I said, obviously most of this video is, you know, positive, and I'm very excited about the games that are coming up. Definitely excited to see more of Tekken 8 and Street Fighter 6. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for now. I know this video has been quite long, so if you got to the end, I appreciate it. Until then though, until we get more info, I guess, that'll be it for me for now. So I shall see you all later. Goodbye.
We await your return, warrior.